across growth markets, hosted by MIT Kuo Sharper Center for Prosperity and Entrepreneurship. I'm Andrea Cates, entrepreneur in residence and author of From Stuck to Scale. And we'll be talking today about what it really takes for corporations and entrepreneurs to thrive in the fastest growing regions of the world: Africa, Latin America, Central, South, and Southeast Asia. And to the audience, great to have you here. And please send us questions during today's conversation, and we'll answer them during the session. We kicked off the series with Florian Schotteman from Cargill and Bumi Akinyemiju from Greenhouse Capital. And today we'll continue to discuss our core themes: how corporates are engaging and scaling across growth markets, and how corporates can better support ventures, growth, and prosperity. So I'd like to introduce today's guest, Amr Awadallah, who is the CEO and co-founder of Vectara, a company that's enabling organizations to leverage Gen AI in business applications by reducing risk from hallucinations, bias, copyright infringement, and model weight pollution. Amr previously served as VP of Developer Relations at Google Cloud, and prior to joining Google in November 2019, Amr co-founded Cloudera in 2008, and as global CTO spent 11 years working closely with enterprises around the world on how to ingest and extract value from big data. He also served as Vice President of Product Intelligence Engineering at Yahoo from 2000 to 2008. And you joined Yahoo after they acquired your first startup, Optivia, in mid-2000, which was a search engine for online product information. You received your PhD in electrical engineering from Stanford University and degrees from Cairo University in Egypt. Welcome. We are so excited, and plus the fact that you are also a member of MIT Kuo Sharper Center's Global Business Circle. So welcome, and let's get started.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, we've just heard a lot about your background, which is exciting and massively relevant to what we're going to talk about today. But for people who aren't really familiar with Vectara, maybe a bit about your background and a little bit more about all of the great bio that we just talked about.
Yeah, so I mean, I can briefly say the story of kind of how Vectara came to be. So the brief version, at least. As you mentioned during the introduction, after Cloudera, I joined Google Cloud in 2019. And sometimes people ask me, why did I join a big company versus starting a company right away? And I jokingly say it's to rest. And by rest, I don't mean like the number of hours. I still worked a lot at Google Cloud. It's more the stress. The stress of starting your own company is a very high level of stress. It's a very massive responsibility towards the investors, of course, betting on you, but also the employees working with you, the customers depending on you. And you need to be ready for that level of stress before you start a company. And hence, that's why I joined Google Cloud. Now, that said, during my experience at Google Cloud in 2019, I was very fortunate to try one of the very first and earliest LLMs, smart type chatbots that we see today. And I could see right away that there was two key issues that would prevent this technology from being adopted within large banks and telecommunication companies and governance and health centers and so on. And these two problems were, number one, the problem of accuracy is sometimes these smart AI systems can make mistakes. That's why if you use ChatGPT or if you use Gemini, at the bottom, you're going to see a small footnote that says ChatGPT can make mistakes or Gemini can make mistakes. And as consumers, it's okay if we experience that every now and then. But as a business, if you're depending on this to do a legal contract or a patient diagnosis or a business analysis, no, you cannot have these mistakes. That can be very, very damaging. So that's the number one problem. And then the number two problem that these systems have is around security, is that sometimes you can trick them, just like you can trick humans with what's called social engineering attacks. You can also trick these chatbots sometimes to reveal information to you that maybe you should not be privy to. And that can be very dangerous, obviously, from a privacy perspective. So that's another very key problem that was clear to me during my time at Google that these systems would need to fix. And that's when I left Google, it became clear that that's one of the key problems I would like to focus on solving in the future. and hence Victara. So at Victara, what we offer in a nutshell is a platform that allows companies to run AI agents in production, but then run it with the trust that they will provide accurate answers, secure responses, and will be governed in real time to make sure they don't go outside the boundaries of what they're allowed to do and what they are not allowed to do.
You know, it's interesting you're talking about this because it sounds like right from the beginning, there have been so many waves of concerns about threats, you know, whether it's security or cybersecurity. A lot of times I know that in China they have a phrase, you know, it's sort of like the race between the devil and the priest, you know, that there's the sense that as the technologies advance, that there's also sort of really sharp people doing clever, trustworthy things, but also the threats are, you know, are there as well. And I really like what you said about the difference, because this is really framing this notion of the corporate mindset, that there's a difference between the innovative mindset where you can do these many things versus a corporate responsibility. And I'd love to hear more about that mindset, you know, the governance issues. It's not just accuracy, but it's also, you know, what enterprises need from these new technologies. That they've been accused of being slow to adopt, but it's not necessarily that they're slow for bad reasons. Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that does summarize exactly what has been going on. Is most organizations and big businesses, they see the significant efficiency values that come in from adopting these newer type of technologies, but at the same time they are cautious because they realize that if they launch it in the wrong way, it can create significant damage. And we have seen some embarrassing stories in the news of maybe organizations that launched these systems too soon without making sure they're working with somebody who understands how to deploy them correctly, or studying the implications themselves to mitigate these key issues. Because once you go live with a system like that and a big mistake happens where the AI does a bias mistake, they gives somebody an opinion that's based on the race, for example, or it does a significant accuracy mistake, or it does a significant data privacy leakage mistake, that can be very damaging to reputation. It can be very hard to recover from. The stories like that come out all the time. A couple of weeks ago, there was a very embarrassing story in Australia. The Australian government had commissioned Deloitte to do a research report for them. And Deloitte was using Microsoft Azure OpenAI, and they did not have the proper fact-checking kind of apparatus around their work that you should be doing in a business. It might be okay if you're a consumer, but business has to be doing that. And unfortunately, the final report that was published by the government had a number of completely made-up citations of previous work that never existed, that the AI just made up. And yeah, once you see a story like that, then that now gives you a caution as business. Oh, maybe this technology is not ready. But I would like to tell, like any business listening to us right now, it's like, no, the technology is ready, and it's more about deploying it in the right way and with the right knowledge around that. MIT also, about I think 2 months ago, published a very interesting report in which MIT surveyed a number of the large businesses here in the US about their success in terms of deploying these AI agentic systems. And the statistics were quite damning, actually. It said only 5% of companies succeed in deploying them where they see ROI, meaning return on investment, but they also see good results and safety and security and so on. 5% is such a very small number. But when you dig deeper in the report, you will find out that a big chunk of it is because many of these organizations believe they can just do it themselves, and they jump into it right away, not realizing that, as we say, the devil is in the details to get something like this to really work. So in fact, in that same report, they show usually if a business is working with a vendor, Victara or otherwise, that understands how to properly deploy these systems, then the success rates go up, way up. They go up from 5% to 70% and above. And that's kind of the main thing I would like to point out is, as a business leader, as you hear these stories of big embarrassing mistakes that the AI had made here or there, it's not the AI to blame, in my opinion. It's the people deploying the AI not knowing the right things to do around it to keep it in check. And the good news is there is so many great solutions today that enable that to keep the AI in check.
Well, I love that, and I love the fact that you probably could have stayed in a situation where you didn't kind of volunteer again for the stress of startup. So I'm I'm imagining that as a leader, you're looking at this as a very important place to be placing. That it's worth the stress to solve the problems that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a very good advice, Andrea, in general that I give to entrepreneurs is before you embark on any startup or any significant mission, I would say, even if it's not a startup, like even if it's a nonprofit or a significant effort that you believe in, you really want to make sure that the problem you're solving, the thing that you're working on to improve, is something that you're passionate about and you care about, because that passion and care and love for the thing you're going to be working on, it is the best source of energy that will keep you up and going at full speed despite all the obstacles or the stress that you might be facing. It's because of how much you love what you're doing and the problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah, it's funny because I've heard it in corporate settings as well. I had a corporate client who always used to say about internal initiatives, we have to make sure that the juice is worth the squeeze. And, because, and I think that, the idea of having business be a place for passion is probably not something people talk about a lot. But whether it's a startup or a large company, there's a lot of people who wake up in the middle of the night, thinking of better ways to protect customers and better ways to bring technologies to market with full capability. And so I really love that you're talking about that, because I think in today's conversation, it's important to remember that this is all uncharted territory, and it has to really be, it's hard. It sounds like it's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
not just for an AI, like any business endeavor, any significant effort where you're trying to change and improve things in a step level kind of way will be difficult, will be hard, and you need to be ready for that. I'm willing to take on that difficulty and hardship and make it work because I believe in the mission. And again, passion is a very, I would say, romantic word, but by passion we really mean this very, very strong belief in the mission that you're after, and that can, again, for me, that's a very important source of energy. Yeah.
Well, I love that, and it's great to have business and passion in the same sentence, in my opinion. So I'm also curious, because of your background, if you could give a little context before we start launching into AI and today's technologies, contextually, like starting way back with your career, when you started seeing ahead, and you've got an academic background as well. But whether it was with Activia or with your background with Cloudera or anything, what is it that you have seen that gets people to take full advantage of any technology? And I'm thinking especially globally, are there some initial ways that you saw markets opening up to the possibility of technology?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very simple advice that I give to myself and to any entrepreneur or innovator that I'm talking to. And the advice starts with this. First, focus on the problem. Like, make sure the problem you're trying to solve is one, worth it. It's an important problem to solve. But two, and this is the part where many people actually sometimes stumble, make sure it's a real problem. Like sometimes it's a problem, but you're the only one in the world that has the problem. So you're not going to be able to succeed in building a big business around that. So make sure it's a real problem that's widespread, that there is a large number or a large category of the market that needs a solution for. And I know it's easier said than done, but that is exactly the secret of success of any company, is finding that initial problem that you want to solve and then creating the minimum viable product, meaning that the best, smallest set of features that can address that problem for your end customer. And if you can do that and show it with your first customer, show it with your second customer, then now you start having evidence that, yes, this is a repeatable problem that many people have that I can keep solving in the same way over and over again. And that's when you start having this confidence that the trajectory you're on is the right trajectory, and you should keep solving that problem, listening to your customers, refining the solution to the problem so they fall in love with it. So that always has been the guiding principle for me as I was growing up. And it goes back, like at least for me personally, it goes back to when I was young. And this is something that I acknowledge my parents, both my mom and dad, investing in it when they saw it in me. I always like to figure out why something is broken, why is it not working, like that tinkering of getting to the root cause of why something is not working in the right way. That was always with me from when I was very young, and I think that's one of the key characteristics that any engineer would have, or any problem solver person would have. They would have that kind of characteristic in them. But then if you nurture that, then I see that as the main, meaning that curiosity to find out the root cause of why something is broken and then how to address it correctly. That becomes a very good kind of ingredient to make up for being an entrepreneur in the future. So that's how I look at it. And then my parents were very, very supportive in terms of that. Like, they would get me all, when I was young, they would get me all of the tooling. They would get me all of the things to play with, investigate with, like chemistry kits and physics kits, and with all of these kind of things that allow you to do investigations. And I think we want to nurture that in our kids as we see it. Like, if we see that curiosity for solving problems, nurture that. I would say that's even more important than knowing how to do math or knowing how to do this or that. It's having that natural curiosity to figure out things. That's a very, very essential ingredient for being a great contributor and innovator in the future. Yeah.
Well, so just as a side note, do they still even sell chemistry kits? Because I think so many of the things we played with as children are probably toxic. I don't know. I mean, I just remember taking things like mercury and having it in our hands. You know, I don't know if you had that experience, but who has mercury as a toy anymore? Probably no one. So you know, I'm interested in this notion of tinkering, to follow up on that, because I want to talk about AI because there's so much hype around it, but there's also so much potential. And then we'll talk more about the growth markets and some, you know, we love the spotlight stories, and we want to hear a bunch of spotlight stories about your experience. But I want to hear about AI as we're talking about this, the tinkering, because people are playing around with it. People have now been doing everything from just, you know, getting it to do their work for them, to having agents that are really helpful, to doing augmented work, to things in robotics and engineering where, you know, you're actually solving physical problems. I mean, there's such a range. In your mindset, if people in companies are tinkering these days, how should they tinker with regards to AI? What is the unlocked potential that people should be really focusing on? I know, you know, we do it as a parlor trick that we can, you know, do these cool things, but what kind of tinkering should people in companies be really doing now to move? I'm really shocked about the 5%. If only 5% of people in roles that really have the potential to move this forward are experiencing full advantage. What should people tinker with?
Yeah, so I look at kind of the maturity journey, and now with respect to this new wave of AI, which we sometimes call Gen AI, to separate it from the previous wave, to take three phases. So the first phase is what I call the crawl phase, and then the second phase is the walk phase, and then the last phase is the run phase. And I say to any business leader that I talk to, you should be at least at the walk phase right now. Crawl is the phase that was in last year. So what is the crawl phase? The crawl phase is the phase that most of us are experiencing AI with right now, which is using tools like ChatGPT or Gemini, just as part of our job to get us to write emails faster, summarize meeting notes, create a new document, etc., etc. So it's like phase number one. It's just like very, very simple AI usage to improve our ability of writing and processing text. Like, that's how I look at phase number one. So I call that the crawl phase. And I would say most companies, whether they like it or not, they are at the crawl phase, meaning either the company already has invested in having a company-wide tool like Gemini or ChatGPT or Copilot from Microsoft, or if they have not, then their employees are using it anyway back at home, right? So I think most companies are in the walk phase, in the crawl phase. Now, the problem with the crawl phase is it requires the human themselves to purposely change the way that they work, to leverage the AI as part of how they work, right? So that's the crawl stage. The work stage is now where you start integrating the AI in the natural workflow of how the employees are doing things. So they don't have to say, oh, let me go check with ChatGPT, let me go check with Gemini. No, it's part of the way that you work within that company. It's part of the AI tools of that company. You will have the AI helping you finish your task quicker because it is part of the actual environment you're working in. And we essentially refer to that as the agentic RAG phase. I can talk about the word RAG keyword later, but essentially that's now where the AI on one end is plugged in into the data of the company. So it's plugged into the backend systems that have the documents for the company, that have the databases for the company, et cetera, on the back end. So it's connected to these things, but then on the front end, it's connected to the end user directly, right? It's part of the application that they use within that company to do their job anyway. It's part of the mobile app anyway. It's not like a separate app that I have to go to. And then it's proactively helping me get things done. But there is still a human in the loop in that phase. So in that phase, there is still a human in the loop. The human is approving every single step. So that's the walk phase, right? So the crawl phase is you're using ChatGPT or Gemini on the side. The walk phase is, no, this is now integrated into the workflow of what I do. And then the run phase is where we have some autonomy. That's where there's some tasks now that you're letting the AI do beginning to end, right? So for example, if you're using AI for customer support, right? So people are calling your company, you're getting calls left and right, you're getting emails left and right. During the crawl stage, you would do nothing as a company, but your employees then would, the customer support employees, when they answer the call, they would search ChatGPT or Gemini on the side to try and help them resolve that problem for the customer. So that would be the kind of the simple crawl stage. Now you take your team and move them on to the walk stage as part of the customer support system. As the customer call comes in, the AI is looking at the call with the real person, and then the AI is recommending to the real person in real time in front of them on the screen. These are good solutions for this problem. Here you go, 1, 2, and 3. But the person still has to read one of them and communicate it back to the customer. So that would be the walk stage. And then in the run stage, the AI would be so confident that this is the right answer that we can give that right answer to the end customer right away. We don't have to have the customer support rep become a bottleneck for providing a response back, except for the cases where we detect that, maybe the accuracy is off here. I should get a second look from a human. So this way, the AI is working with us hand in hand and deciding which things it can take care of autonomously, and then which things to pass to us that it needs the expert opinion in. So in summary, crawl, walk, run. And most organizations right now should be in the walk stage. If you're not in the walk stage, if you're still stuck in the crawl stage, I would say you're behind right now compared to the industry at large.
Well, this is great. It's interesting. I love crawl, walk, run, and I also am thinking about kind of a moment for a spotlight story, because I would love to hear an example of either a direct application of something that you've done in the past where you've gotten people to adopt a new technology, like we're trying to do to change this 5%, and also maybe even a leapfrog. Where somebody has gone from crawl to like run to really be able to transcend some infrastructure issues or something. But what's an example from your past? I'd love to hear spotlight stories, because we're going to look at growth markets. So I'm interested in your global perspective of where in the world people have done it, maybe one way versus another way, or even industry to industry, like in one industry, manufacturing. As you know, I'm working with the National Association of Manufacturers and looking at global manufacturing issues. That's very different from ag tech that we're working with in Africa right now. So, are there either industries that are different or global regions that are different? And I'd love to hear a spotlight story, something from your experience.
Both are true. I mean, meaning that, of course, the adoption will depend on the region and will depend on the industry that you're in. So both are very, very applicable. You mentioned manufacturing. So actually, manufacturing is one of the key areas that are truly leveraging this technology right now. So one customer I can mention is Broadcom. Broadcom is one of the top semiconductor manufacturing companies in the world. And many of the use cases within manufacturing come about know-how, like the process for how we manufacture something, or if there is certain previous experience and lessons that the team had, that the new designers, as they're working on something, or there is a factory, there is a machine in the factory that failed in a certain new way, how can I very quickly diagnose that and bring it back on track? And historically, we relied on human experience to remember that, all the tricks and tips for how you fix something, but that's not scalable, obviously. So what many organizations are doing is they're capturing that knowledge now from how they have worked with these machines in the past, putting that knowledge into these AI systems using solutions like ours. And now the workers in the factory, the workers even not just in the factory, the workers working on doing a new design or a new spec, whenever they have any question, it's as if they have this guru that has been working for the company for hundreds of years, and they know all the tips and tricks. And they tell them, yes, this is exactly how you solve that problem. These are the steps, and this is how you go around doing it. So that to me, that's one of the killer apps of this new wave of AI, meaning giving us this amazing, all-knowing oracle guru that sits beside us, that helps the average of us that don't have the full experience of the most senior of us to become well above average, right? Because we now have this amazing assistant beside us that can help us answer all these questions in real time very, very fast. So that's a very, very, very common, repeatable use case. Now, to your question about whether you should leapfrog or not, it's typically very hard for large companies to leapfrog, right? Because they have lots of processes and cultural things built into their organization that take time to adapt and grow and evolve. So the advice that anybody will give to a big company is, you want to walk, crawl, run, but do it fast. Do the walk, crawl, run fast, because AI is evolving very quickly. Versus if you try and leapfrog, the risk with that is your organization might not be ready yet to leapfrog, and then you end up doing that, and then you get this internal resistance from within your organization that might lead that project to failure. And as we always know, what gets us in terms of building anything new or deploying anything new is the unknown unknowns, meaning the problems that nobody has thought of. And if you leapfrog, you're going to hit all of these unknown unknowns right away. And that might be very, very hard to rectify. Versus if you start doing walking first, get your muscle memory built about how I'm using this new technology within my organization, then now you're ready to move on to the walking, and you're ready to move on to the running, because you're learning your mistakes and the lessons as you proceed, and you have time to rectify them, versus when you leapfrog. Typically, leapfrogging will only happen from new companies, right? So a new company coming in a new space, they don't have the same rules that are encumbering them like legacy companies, and hence they can leapfrog quite quicker. And that's why we have this very nice balance between big companies and startups coming up to help them solve some of the problems that are harder for them to solve. Hopefully that makes sense.
I like that definition. I read something just this morning about leapfrogging from a different perspective when it comes to growth markets, which is we'll transition into that, because there was a different view of leapfrogging, which I'd love to chat with you about as well. They were talking about, and I remember this was years ago when telecom was a new thing, right? And we were having these last mile problems with Telmex, and you know, we couldn't get the last mile. We couldn't get the phones connected. It would take months and months and months. And then, of course, it's like, wait a minute, there's new technology. We can literally leapfrog and get a lot of people to have connectivity with a different approach to technology, not waiting for the lines to be installed. So another view of leapfrogging was something I read this morning, where you know, like countries that are going directly to battery-powered vehicles that might be, you know, leapfrogging beyond the petroleum-based economy. So some of the sustainability things with solar installations, to have access to power in a way that leapfrogs an entire region from the old approach to, you know, the way that you might have to provide energy and power. So it strikes me, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it strikes me that AI and technologies in growth markets might have the potential to do a couple things. One might be to take the whole workforce and talent and give a lot of people a skill set much more rapidly for rapid deployment of kind of a democratic access to skills, you know, that are going to be next level skills. I remember sort of the call center wave 20 years ago. You know, it took a whole region and just said, we're going to get good at this, you know, one thing. So I'm just curious, when we think about growth markets, are there some different ways to think about AI and or the technologies that you're familiar with to help regions, grow in a different pattern?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You're right. So like if you're again, if you're starting from scratch, meaning you already have not made a lot of investments in something, then you can leapfrog, right? So my comment about leapfrogging applies to if you already have an established way of doing things, it's harder to leapfrog. So if you're a big company and or a big country even for that matter, and you already have a massive investment in telephone lines, then it's hard now to switch over directly to mobile because you want to leverage the investment you had in telephone lines. But if you're a virgin market where phone lines have never been installed at full capacity to start with, then now you can jump over to the next wave right away, and that's absolutely what we should be doing. And then the key insight or the key thing you highlight is technology in many ways democratizes access to new things that might be much harder to do otherwise. So for example, the presence now of these cloud hyperscalers like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, Alibaba Cloud in Asia, etc., etc. These services allow any company now to start having back-end IT infrastructure almost as good as the JP Morgans of the world, almost as good as the biggest company, the Googles of the world, right? And it's now available to anybody to just go sign up and get that in any country, in any place across the world. And that's a massive, massive enabler because building out a solid back-end IT infrastructure, if you go back 20 years, doing that from scratch would cost you a couple of $1 million to get something like that up and going in a reliable way, versus now it costs you $1. You just go up and you pay as you go, right? And you scale this thing as you go. And same thing is now happening now with AI. Like it's enabling many of these countries in growth, in new up and coming growth markets, to leverage that technology to solve problems in a new way that would not have been possible before, because either they didn't have access to the knowledge, they didn't have access to the same pool of intelligence, etc., etc. So, for example, like a couple of very examples I follow closely, and I think are one of the biggest areas in which AI will change the world in a positive way. One of them is education, right? So education is a challenge everywhere across the world. We don't have enough good teachers that know exactly how to adapt their style to every student. And there's lots of research that has been done even without AI, like lots of research that has been done just if you get students and you give them one-on-one education, meaning you have the teacher focused on them, especially during the primary years, the elementary and primary years of education, their level of performance over the lifetime is usually at least one standard of deviation, if not two, higher than the average, right? So having a dedicated teacher significantly improves your intelligence and your ability to get things done. Now, clearly, there's no way we can have dedicated teachers to every single student on planet Earth. We just don't have enough good teachers that can do that. But with AI now, we can do that, right? So with AI, and that's one of the very, very hopeful thing. And I know that's one of the biggest usages of AI in developing countries like Egypt, where I come from, or India, or Pakistan, or they have very, very large populations of students now that are getting their education from the AI systems, and getting their education from YouTube, for example, where there's lots of great lectures and that was not available to them before, right? So that's a very, very clear example of something that's being very quickly democratized to the benefit of the entire world. Same thing with health. We don't have enough good just family doctors that help diagnose people. And many people in many countries, even here in the US, where it's still hard, they would just ask their relatives or their friends, "Oh, I have a headache. What should I take?" And their friend would tell them, "Take this medicine or take that medicine." And that could be very bad advice. Could be completely wrong. Could be something that will make it worse. But because they're too lazy to go see a real doctor, or maybe it's very hard to get the real doctor, they end up doing that. Imagine now they have this amazing, which we have many. That's one of the primary usage of ChatGPT actually, is medical questions and answering questions about medicine and doing initial diagnosis for the simple stuff, and it does it just as good as a real doctor. So again, it democratizes that, that's going to save so many lives now in the future. So these are the positive things, and I really like to bring this all back. Technology in general, but AI specifically, this new wave of AI is truly a democratizer. It's going to allow many companies in many of these third world growth countries to be able to compete and leapfrog some of the first world countries in terms of what they do. So that absolutely is going to be happening, and it's on them, on meaning on these countries and on these markets and on the entrepreneurs in these amazing countries to take advantage of that. But it's now possible. It was not possible before in the past. And one example I love to share is from for example, from the wave of social media like YouTube, TikTok, and so on. Before that wave of social media, it was impossible for a random Joe Schmo, for a random person who has good talent and has good ideas to make their own CNN or to make their own Fox News or their own massive news media organization, right? That was just impossible. Like it was something that you couldn't even think about 20 years ago. If you don't have the funding of such a massive studio that's going to back you with distribution, and there's no way you'll be able to build something like that. And now because of technology, we have people like doing that from all around the world, right? We have people in all countries now becoming these massive broadcasters on the social media like TikTok, YouTube, and so on because of that technology, and because of it bringing down the cost of me doing a very nice show. It doesn't cost, again, 20 years ago to do that nice show, it would have cost at least $100,000 per episode, which, like, forget about it. But now it costs only a couple of bucks to get a good phone and record it and have the show go online and start to grow. And that is going to be happening over and over again. So absolutely agree with you that there is a massive opportunity in all of these regions to leapfrog by leveraging this technology.
Yeah, it's interesting because I like your definition of leapfrog in the beginning, the sort of the cautionary part. And I also am excited about what you just said about the leapfrogging from a whole region. I just got back from Central Asia and from Botswana in Africa. And it was so interesting to meet people, everything from like 19-year-olds to like 35-year-olds who are really skilled at vibe coding. You know, I don't know, 5 years ago, was there vibe coding? I don't know. But suddenly...
No, there wasn't.
It was like people who learn, they're, like you said, they're tinkerers, they're curious, and the tools are democratically available. So, you're not limited, I think it's great to be able to go to a place like MIT on campus all the time, but the world now has a way of connecting people with the same level of curiosity and tinkering skills through these, affordable technologies. And I feel like there's a huge, at least for me, to see in one sense Tashkent and then Habarone in like the same week, and the same 21-year-old in both places has been exposed to, like you said, all of the resources that they're able to find through their own curiosity. I find that really a positive.
Yeah, and this vibe X thing, where X could be anything, like vibe coding, vibe movie making, vibe music creation, that's gonna be happening over and over again, and that is the democratizing effects. Like, again, think about some random, very talented person from Botswana who wants to be the next Steven Spielberg. They want to make the next amazing Avengers movie or ET movie or whatever. Again, like I would say 5 years ago, there is no way they could even dream of doing that, because the only way to do that is come to Hollywood and find somebody who has like $100 million to invest in them to build and make a movie like that. And now with this new level of AI that can create movies, it's getting there. It's almost there. Like, it's going to happen by the end of, I would say by middle of next year at the high end, we'll have AI that can create a whole movie with you from beginning to end, including the music, the sound effects, the special effects, everything. Then now that will unlock massive creativity. You will have people from, yes, there's going to be lots of crap as well. There's going to be lots of slump, but I'm a very big believer that if you have massive amounts of content being produced, there's always going to be gems in the middle, like Mr. Beast on YouTube, right? Like, there's tons of random stuff on YouTube, but then you get every now and then, because you have that massive ability to create that stuff, you get a lot more talent contributing, and then a gem will come out that you have never expected before. And that is a very positive phenomena that will help unlock our talent across the world. Again, not just for coding, which I think is amazing that's happening for coding, but it will be across many industries.
It's funny. I love the word unlock, because it's always, it shouldn't be surprising, but it's always surprising to me how many stories are being unlocked. Stories that, as you said, first of all, like with cameras, the cameras used to be huge. And so it was like only strong people could carry them, I'm not that big, and I remember thinking I had a story to tell, but I wasn't going to carry that big camera with the, I don't know, it seemed like you have to carry like an entire scaffold with you. Now, as
Yeah,
as you said, you can have like a very inexpensive camera. You can tell a
yeah,
story differently. The world of narrative can shift so quickly and has shifted so quickly because people who have great stories to tell but didn't have, I'm using that
exactly.
example of like heavy camera as a metaphor, but
Yeah,
like you said, it doesn't have to be Hollywood studios
yeah,
anymore. The
yeah,
once the healthcare, it's interesting the world you're describing. Like once access to education is democratic and universal, healthcare is more available so that people are well and can take care of themselves. They have access to some of these, I'll call it, the leapfrog technologies where they can enter a field without necessarily all of the scaffolding and the heavy cameras and the narratives that they can now tell. I mean, to me, to transition into kind of my next topic, which is growth markets, the
mhm,
fastest growing markets, whether it's Africa, Latin America, Central Asia, Southeast Asia, these are, fast growing populations. They are at MIT Quo Sharper Center, as you know, they are places where we believe in shared prosperity, where the mindset shift happens and lots of things are about to unleash and unlock. But I want to start with a little bit of the negative before we go to the positive, if you don't mind. So, what difficult, I imagine that you've sold into and worked in growth markets. There's a question from the audience. What are differences in the Arab region versus Africa? What are some difficulties you've faced in growth markets? So let's get a little bit, real about some of the challenges, and then we can get a bit more optimistic. So give us another spotlight story.
yeah. So I mean, difficulty in terms of different markets. Again, the answer changes depending on what's the product of your company. If you're doing a consumer product, a consumer-facing product, or a business-facing product, then the answers are going to be very different. But regardless of growth market or not, I mean, whenever you enter a new market, meaning a new country that is going to have their own regulations, is going to have their own way of doing things, their own way of how business is done, and you need to be agile enough to figure that out. And that is one of the benefits of the US, to be honest, as a launch market, as the US has this very nice, almost homogeneous, like 300 million, 400 million consumer market in it that allows you to get a very successful launch of whatever you're working on within your country before you start scaling outside of your country. And that's what I always recommend is that if you can't make this work within your home base, you're not going to be able to work this international. But it's also important that from ground zero, you always have the international dream, meaning that you are, whatever you're working on, I am launching it in my home base in my country first, but I'm dreaming about solving this for the world, right? And that's one of the great advantages of, not advantages, but the great tenets of startups that start here in the US, especially in Silicon Valley, is they all start with that mentality. Like, I'm going to be global one day. I'm just figuring it out here first, and then global is it's not a assumption. It's not something I'm thinking about. No, it's part of my plan. It's something I will do once I have proven the success here. And what I see happen in many of the global growth markets is sometimes they sometimes focus too much on themselves. Which again, I'm going to say that's important in the first few years of your product as you're proving it out. It's important you focus on yourself. But if you really want to make a big difference and compete with the US and China worldwide, then you very quickly, like if I am in Botswana, and as soon as I figure this out for Botswana, I don't know what's the population of Botswana, but I'm going to guess like 10 million, 20 million. I might be completely off here. Correct me if I'm wrong. But as soon as I figure it out, like, okay, how can I take this now and make a solution for all of Africa? Right? So start thinking in that way. Like, how can we prepare from day one as we're building our products, prepare them in a way that enable them to be global products, so I can go beyond the borders of just the country I'm in.
Okay, so
That would be the main advice. That would be the main advice I would give. And
it's
I got
interesting.
the answer saying it's 2.76 million is the population of Botswana. So
Yes.
that's a small city here in the US.
Next time we'll have an AI, like as we're talking, it'll just be projecting over our heads any question
Yeah.
that we have. And then in the future, we'll have like our brain waves being read. So it'll like figure out what we're thinking, and even before we have the question, it'll just like announce it. And then in the future, we won't even have to do these podcasts and webinars anymore. It'll be like two agents talking to each other. Have you ever been in a Zoom call or a video call where none of the people have shown up but like Fireflies is there and all these other, and every once in a while I feel like just kind of, having a meeting of just all the AI agents and saying, hey, let's save all the humans some time and, just kind of go at it. Anyway, okay, there's another great question from the audience, which is around the structural barriers you faced with policymakers. So one of the things that's a consistent, as you know, the MIT Kuo Sharper Center, we're looking for shared prosperity in growth markets. And this webinar is, a lot of our listeners are corporates. And we know that in trying to get into new markets, which a lot of global companies have that ambition, they'll face a bit of fear. And so wonder if whatever you're comfortable sharing in terms of barriers with policymakers, what has been easy, what's been challenging, and once again, you don't have to name names, but we would love to hear some of the realities of what we're up against.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, like every country, every market will have their own way of how things get done. And sometimes us coming into a new country from outside, we don't know all of these ways. And hence, whenever you're entering a new market that you're not especially if it's a new market that you're not very familiar with, meaning you haven't operated in before, the best thing you can do is find a very strong partner that can help you launch within that market. That's the best thing you can do, because that partner would know all of these kind of unspoken rules and tricks of getting things done, including working with the policymakers and lobbying with them, because sometimes you need to lobby and so on. Then they will give you access to that. Now, I would say again, because most of what I do is enterprise software as opposed to consumer businesses, I don't face that friction as much, because usually I'm selling to another company, and that other company, they are the one taking care of dealing with regulators in terms of deploying it within their premises and so on. So I don't see that problem as much. It is a problem, but I don't see it as much. It comes every now and then. But if I was doing a consumer product, like if I was building something like WhatsApp or whatever, then now, there is many countries that have very strict regulations about how we can do it and what you can do. Same thing in fintech. If I'm doing something on the banking side or health tech, then you need to be a lot more cautious about making sure you are launching correctly and coordinating with the policymakers, so you don't end up shooting yourself in the foot. Yes, I agree with that.
Well, so I like that, and I also don't know who you admire these days, because I have a couple companies that I'm always tracking who are really trying to, it's not easy necessarily to do scaling, and it's not easy to enter new markets. And especially, with the right corporate citizen hat on, and I know that's one that you wear. Are there any companies that you're kind of paying attention to, like, wow, they seem to be doing something really strong or inspiring in growth markets and expanding globally?
I mean, it'd be the usual suspects. Like I would just I pick Google, for example. If you look at Google Translate and you look at how Google Translate allows us, it's free. Anybody can use it for free. It's available around the world, and broke down these language barriers between us speaking all across the world in any language we would like. That's a free that's a free gift to the world. They're not charging for that, right? Anybody can get that and install that. So that's a major contribution to the world at large in terms of making us work better together. And same thing, like right now, whatever you believe about them as a company overall, but Meta, within a lot of their products, Facebook and Instagram and others, they are launching these very nice automatic translation tools now, where when you post a story, if you're speaking in Hindi, I'm watching it here, I'm going to hear it in English. I'm hear you speaking in English, right? Even though you are with your own voice, even though the original video was in Hindi, and vice versa. And that's going to unlock the communication between us and the cultures, connectivity between us across the world in a very significant way. So these are some of the examples I really like, where I see the companies giving back in a way where they're not really trying to extract more. They're already making good money from other parts of their business, and then they're giving back within certain other parts in new ways that enable all of us. Yeah.
So
Another actually another good product I recommend from Google that AI product for the growth markets is Notebook LM. Hopefully, many of you are already using Notebook LM. And Notebook LM allows you to plug in any book, any paper, any course you have went to at school, any YouTube video you have saw or podcast, and then you get this amazing kind of teacher that will first explain the book to you, and you can jump in and start asking it questions, and it will explain it to you in details and so on. And again, like the early versions of that are free to use. Of course, if your consumption is too much, you have to pay, but it's still a very, very, I think, impactful product across the world.
Well, and that goes back to things like Google LM, Notebook LM is goes back to what you were saying, the democratization of knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
anything. I find myself pretty much every day asking some bot or other, can you explain so and so to me as if I'm a novice?
Yeah.
And it's amazing how breaking down knowledge can be the gateway to opportunity. And to me,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's really great. And, it's funny too, because at MIT, as we work with corporates and have the ability to train teams in how to expand in growth markets, there's also a notion of getting everybody's starting point to be defined so that people get onto a level playing field by like day 1 or 2. Everybody can catch up and not give up.
Yeah.
They can
Again,
crawl and walk.
That's good. That goes to, yeah. If like the crawl walk run is all about getting your muscle memory, meaning your way of working in this new way, organically, slowly building up, so you don't get the resistance, and so you don't get the, oh no, this is not for me, this is too hard, I'm not gonna, and then you give up, right? No, you wanna make it easy so people start trying it out and just increase their usage organically as they use that thing.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I have one last question from the audience, and then I'm going to go into our kind of lightning round, which is purely for social media, by the way, the lightning round. So you say something quick and it's pithy.
Sure.
But this one, I would love one more story, the spotlight story, where you literally, whether it was at Cloudera or wherever, were entering a growth market and faced, like a policy that needed to, that wasn't friendly to what you were trying to do to expand, or something having to do with a structural barrier. Can be from any point in your experience of how you went into a market. And once again, we still have the Arab region versus Africa question on the table, but just pick a region where you walked in and the regulation wasn't necessarily conducive, or there was a policy. Because I'm asking this because we collectively are trying to help other people confront some of these same challenges with some advice or some insights. Anything in the past where you have a good story of overcoming a policy barrier or a structural barrier?
I'm thinking about the response. There's a question I also see in the studio chat, by the way, Andrea, that we should, it's a good question. I should
the
get to
solar
that as
one
well.
from Algeria. Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Unfortunately, not off the top of my head. I can't think of a very concrete example of that right now. Which could also mean that I have not faced that problem. Like it could be that as and I know again because of being enterprise software, because that problem is a lot more visible when you're on the front end with the consumers directly. Then you get hit with that right away. Versus if you're working with another company, and then it's the other company that takes care of it.
That's actually, by the way, that's actually a huge insight. Because it's like we always talk about like the crawl, walk, run. If you're trying to crawl, but you find someone to kind of pull you forward. So for instance, and we say this to entrepreneurs all the time, don't necessarily try to go this alone. So if you're selling enterprise software to large company has fought the battle or established the regulatory environment. Don't try to go to the front line yourself necessarily. Talk to me about that. I don't know if I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Find a partner. I said this earlier. Like if you're entering a new market that you're not very knowledgeable of how things are get done within that market, you can suffer through figuring it out yourself. But as a startup, you don't have the luxury of time to suffer. So the best way, it's a bit more expensive, of course, do it that way. But the best way is to find a good, solid partner that you can work with and depend on to navigate these uncharted waters with you. But at the same time, again, urgency and speed are very, very important for startups and growth. So, like, if I go back to my Cloudera years, if I'm entering a new market and that market cooperates, then I'm going to double down and invest more and hire more people and grow the business there. If I try my best and still the market is not cooperating, meaning there is forces trying to stop me from expanding or not enable me as a business, then I'm going to run away. I'm going to go pick a different market. So the governments also need to realize that there sometimes can be an opportunity cost to having too much policies and procedures around how this new technology is deployed. In fact, Europe is suffering through that right now with AI. Like Europe over-regulated AI to a point where many companies decided, okay, we're not going to launch these new AI features in Europe anymore. We're not going to give you this new cool stuff. You're not going to have that in Europe anymore. And then the citizens start to complain and say, oh, how come we don't have access to that? And it's because your regulators are being unreasonable and they don't want to bring this in. And as the consumers now start to complain, then the government start to react. And one of the best stories to see a company, how a company adapted to that is the story of Uber and how Uber came to overcome a lot of the lobbies for the taxi companies across the world and the limousine companies across the world, and which included lots of policymaker complexities, but they were able to navigate through it in a very, very smart way by leveraging the consumers to come back and say, no, we want this. Like, yes, you as a government think this is not good for us. No, we know this is good for us. You have to do this for us. So you need to have a way to be able to change their perspective like that.
So I know we have one more question in the lobby, but I want to get to the quick ones because we absolutely have to, and then if we have time, we'll go to the other audience question. Because sure. I'm interested in you as a person. Like, what trends in general are you watching right now? I know you have children, you have people in different generations. Yes. You know, are there either pop trends or business trends that you're just like, you know, you're a tinkerer. What are you curious about in terms of just trends? This is the quick.
I'm barely surviving, keeping up with AI and how fast it's evolving and improving, and the new techniques and algorithms and research that's being introduced every day. It's so I'm barely keeping up with. So AI is the answer.
Okay, well that's no surprise. Who do you follow in terms of blogs? You might not have any time for entertainment these days, but any blogs or books or anything that you're following?
So I used to in the past to have lists of people I follow. Now I rely on AI to create that for me. So I get a curated AI. One of the cool features in Gemini, and I think ChatGPT has this as well, is where you can go in and say, for every day, create for me a curated summary of the key news in this area. These are the topics I care about. These are some of the news sources I like to follow. And every day it will send me this 5-minute brief that is exactly fine-tuned for me and what I like to read. So that's my approach. And you can schedule that task where it just emails it to you or shows it to you in the app. So that's what I recommend.
That's really scary. I have a friend that used to be my help desk. And then when help desks happened, I said, what do I need you as my friend for? So I'm wondering what I need my newspapers for now, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just kidding. Okay, so what's a challenge you wish that we could fix? You know, when it comes to expansion, you've got Vectara that's growing. Let's imagine that, you know, that we're trying to really enter these markets in ways that are smooth. You know, are there any barriers that you wish could be solved?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had the magic wand and I can have all the business rules and all of the payment rules across the world be exactly the same. I mean, we're hoping blockchain and Bitcoin will one day give us that. But yes, I mean, there's tons of friction, even within the US, like moving between different states. Like there's all the new regulations for that state that I'm going to be operating in. And if there's a more uniform way to make it smooth to just do business across borders, like that would unlock so much capabilities across the world. But unfortunately, that's a human problem. So it's very hard to solve.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to stay at crawl on that one for a while, I think. Okay, so this is the self-centered one, and then we'll end with an aha one. So, you know, at MIT Quo Sharper Center, we are doing on-campus experiences and workshops, et cetera, and trying to get this mindset, you know, especially for corporates is what I focus on. Is there a kind of, I don't know if it's vibe coding, but like a cool experience that you think we could offer that would be a great kind of workshop or experience for leaders to get together and brainstorm something or tackle something together?
Yeah, I mean, I would give an experience that is more around the walk stage, right? Meaning, take a business problem they have within the organization, and this is how this business problem could be completely flipped on its head right now with AI being an integral part of that workflow, as opposed to AI being an app you're using on the side. Like this is really the best way for them to truly see how this technology can improve their efficiency by 10 times versus just 20%, 30%. I'm using a vibe writing thing on the side.
Okay, I have an idea. I'm going to try to, that's challenge. I'll call that game on. I'm going to try to address that. We want to do something in
Yeah, let's
April.
do that for manufacturing together. We'll do that for
Okay, let's do
manufacturing.
that in April on campus. Okay,
Yeah,
so that's
yeah,
game on. Last one is, this has just been really fun for me, honestly. It's fun to just have a conversation and also have it be somewhat actually revelatory for me. I had a lot of ahas. What's one aha that you had from just talking? Well, I'll tell you my big aha, and then I'll give you yours. It'll give you a
yeah.
chance. Like I had an aha remembering chemistry sets. Like that was such a big thing, and I haven't seen one in ages. So that was my aha. Was wouldn't it be cool to have the equivalent of that again for kids without the
Yeah.
mercury? So, so what's your one aha from the conversation today?
It's the fact that growth countries, they absolutely have the luxury of leapfrogging, and they should take advantage of leapfrogging. That'd be I mean, I kind of knew it already, but it's good to be reminded of that. And this is one of the best chances and the best times right now to leapfrog. Like telecom and wireless on mobile, there was the internet. Now with the AI, you can truly leapfrog. So take advantage of that.
Okay, that's a mic drop. That's perfect. So I'm going to thank you officially, and then hopefully we'll continue to chat. I'm going to take you up on this idea for the workshop. So thank you so much. This was a great conversation, and we'll literally be looking for ways to collaborate. And we'll see you soon. You'll go off camera while I finish up a little bit. But thanks, Amr. It was great, and look forward to working with you.
Same thing here.
And so to the audience, thanks for your questions. Sorry we couldn't get to all of them. And please stay tuned for information on our next webinar. We'd love you to be part of it and watch for our announcements. And also, we'd love to hear from you. So give us feedback on today. You'll see the QR code. And let us know what topics would you like us to cover next. And who do you want to hear from in future sessions. And we also have a quick survey that you can access on that. So thanks again for being with us today, and we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar.